I am very grateful to Starlink satellite internet, which you see right here, for allowing me to actually have an internet connection out here in the middle of the woods. It has been kind of a lifesaver because our solution before was slow and unreliable. Starlink is awesome, but nothing is perfect. And the router that came with my Starlink left a lot to be desired. Luckily, Starlink does allow you to connect an exterior router if you would like to improve your range, your speed, your reliability, and all of those things. And that is where today's video sponsor, the Orbi 970 series Wi-Fi 7 mesh system, comes into play. I also happen to have one of the units out here with me, and we're going to be taking a look at this today. And this has improved my Starlink dramatically for a couple of reasons. So first of all, with Starlink, one of the limitations you have, if you look on the ground over here, you can see that cable. And that cable is running all the way right now to my garage. And because of that cable, you're really limited in where you can put your Starlink router. And even if it didn't, its range was pretty poor. And even the speeds just across the Wi-Fi network were not that great. And that's where Orbi comes in and really improves the Starlink experience. So it's cold out here. Let's jump into my office and go over some of the stats of this Orbi and let me show you the improvements it's made ever since I've set it up. Now, on our way inside, we're gonna have to stop in the garage. Yeah, kind of weird, huh? This is where my Starlink router is. Check it out. So as we come here past the car, this cooler I have here, and blam. That is the best place I can put my Starlink router because I need to get the Ethernet into the basement, and this is the cable that is going out to the yard where we just were looking at the dish. So this is exactly what I'm talking about with the Starlink router. I have limited options on where I can place it, whereas with the Orbi, especially with the satellite stations, blam, you can place those all over the place, and each one of them covers more square footage than the Starlink router does anyway. So let's talk about some of the differences in Starlink that I've noticed since I started using it about 2.5 years ago. When I first got it, connection between the satellite dish on my roof and the satellites up in space, not very good. There were a lot of disconnections and the speeds were not great. Every once in a while, you may hit 150 megabits per second down or maybe 100, but for the most part, we were more looking at 40 to 50 down, maybe up to 70, which for me at the time was, a huge improvement to what I had before, but not really screaming speeds. Well, what I've noticed, especially in the last 6 months, Starlink speeds keep getting better and better and better, and I'm on the lowest tier. You can actually buy faster packages from Starlink and get far faster internet than what I'm experiencing. So what this has led me to conclude is that the router included with my Starlink setup is not quite up to task, and especially, again, the main thing for me is where I can place it because it has to be connected to the satellite dish. You only have so many options, and that in my house, the way I have it set up, has really ruined my option of using the Starlink included router. So this is where the Orbi 970 series Wi-Fi mesh system comes in. Not only can I put the base station in the middle of my house, which is obviously optimal to get Wi-Fi all over the place, I can set up 1 or 2 satellites to extend that range. And actually, you can't see it, but I have the one satellite sitting right here behind me, and it has been perfect in my office for so many things. Now, the first big difference I notice is, of course, my Wi-Fi signal strength is much stronger. Down here in my basement, we actually have metal studs in the walls. That's how they decided to build out this basement. And of course, metal is really going to hamper your Wi-Fi signal. Well, having this base station right here behind me, actually, let me move it. So there you can see it hanging out behind me now. The connection to the Wi-Fi on my desktop here has been so much better, so much more reliable, and I have full Wi-Fi connectivity bars, which I did not have before. Now, of course, the big part of the system is Wi-Fi 7, which is brand new. Most systems do not have this yet, and that is going to give you blazing fast speeds, not just Wi-Fi connection, but also the internet that you're getting from whoever your service provider is. This Wi-Fi system is actually going to be able to keep up with that and give you the full speeds and not hold you back at all. If you just look right here on my Galaxy S24 Ultra that I just got, the little Wi-Fi symbol actually has a 7 on it, and that is because this S24 Ultra is capable of using Wi-Fi 7, which most phones are not yet capable of. This is so new. So not only do you have great connection, blazing fast speeds, coverage throughout your whole house, you are future-proofed with this device for all the new things you're going to get that are going to use Wi-Fi 7. Let's talk some numbers here on the connection and the speeds. So the Orbi is going to cover 3,300 square feet per unit for a total coverage of up to 10,000 square feet. That is crazy. I don't need that much, but I'm sure some of you out there do need that much coverage. That could cover your entire backyard if you think about it. Maybe your house isn't all that huge, but you have more of an outdoor area like we have here. One of my plans for this system, I'm not even kidding, is if we have a party and we have a lot of people over, I'm actually going to take this satellite right here and I'm going to put it outside on our deck so that when people are over, we're all having a good time, we're mostly outside, the Wi-Fi coverage will be good, just in case that anybody needs to use their phone, get in contact with anyone, answer an email, whatever. whatever, they can go anywhere outside my house or inside my house and have full, complete coverage. With Wi-Fi 7, you get up to 27 gigabits of speed, and that is just a ridiculous connection speed and so nice to see. And another thing this has really helped me with is playing my Quest 3. I can actually use the Quest 3 and connect through Wi-Fi to my desktop computer to play all of my PC VR games. So I have games on my computer that are VR, but to play them on the headset, you either have to use a cable to connect directly to the computer, but I like to play in another room, so you can use Wi-Fi to connect over Wi-Fi. Now, if your Wi-Fi is too slow with this device, you'll get a lot of lag and a lot of weird kind of jaggedness and stuff, and it's pretty much unplayable. It can almost actually make you sick. And playing VR with this system, especially with the satellite right here, like right by me, I could take it out in the other room if I want, but I haven't needed to. The connection is rock solid, so I can play these games, no lag, no disconnects. Latency is also awesome. Everything is working so well on this, it's made me really happy to play my PC VR games on my VR headset. So here's just a quick comparison between the Netgear Orbi 970 and the Starlink Wi-Fi router that came with my unit. The Starlink Wi-Fi router only goes up to AC, whereas with the Orbi you get Wi-Fi 7, so you get 6 gigahertz, 2 separate 5 gigahertz bands, and a 2.4 gigahertz band. Mentioning that, there was another feature that came by default with the Orbi that I loved during setup, which by default was called Netgear IoT, Internet of Things, and you can use this separate connection to connect all your little Internet of Things devices. So I have a bunch of light switches on that, I have some smart plugs on that, and it just doesn't kind of clog up your system with all of these things that are just kind of always pinging and always ready and always available. But number one, they need a good connection. Number two, they need really low speeds, low upload, low download, and so it just kind of puts them off onto this other network, doesn't clog up your main network. It was a really nice default built-in feature. So back to my comparison here, the antenna on the Starlink, I couldn't really find a specification for that. The Orbi has 12 high-performance internal antennas with high-power amplifiers, which helps you get that coverage everywhere you are. Now, the big one for me with the Starlink is it didn't by default come with an Ethernet port. Oh, that was awful. I had to pay extra to add one single Ethernet port, which I connected to, and that's how I actually get the internet out of my Starlink and routed to the rest of my house. My entire house is wired with Ethernet, but the Starlink only has one port. So if you wanted to connect other things directly to the Starlink, that's not an option. You needed a switch box or something else. So with the Starlink, I basically have that one single Ethernet cable coming out, and then the Orbi has a bunch of different Ethernet ports on it. You have one 10 gig WAN port, one 10 gig Ethernet LAN port, and then 4 other ports that go up to 2.5 gigs per second. And then on the satellites, you have even more Ethernet ports that you can use in different parts of your home. You also can directly hardwire your main Orbi unit to the satellites to provide the fastest speeds, and that way the satellite, wherever you place it in your home, will be directly connected to that main unit, and you won't need to connect over Wi-Fi, although how I have mine set up here, it's not directly connected, it's connected just over Wi-Fi, and it's working great. So not only is the coverage really good, as I've discussed, this has support for up to 200 separate devices, which is really crazy. I think currently we have about 36 devices connected right now, if I'm remembering correctly, and not a hiccup. We have multiple TVs connected, a Nintendo Switch, my computer, multiple phones, a tablet, actually 2 tablets. There's a lot of different stuff. Light switches, smart plugs, as I said before, and everything is working seamlessly. Connection is great. Oh, both of our cars are also connected to Wi-Fi all the time. That was actually a huge benefit. I have 2 Teslas that connect to Wi-Fi, and they connected to the Starlink, but they only had 1 bar of Wi-Fi signal. Now they have full bars, and they are connected much more strongly, so I will always be getting my updates to my Teslas as fast as possible. That was always something I worried about before, and I even had to reposition my cars in the past. I used to actually keep my Starlink Wi-Fi down in the basement. It's currently in the garage, as I showed before. I don't know if it's going to stay there or whatever. Not that it matters now that I have the Orbi, but I've had to reposition my cars before because they couldn't really get a good signal because my Starlink Wi-Fi was in the basement, and then the cars were, you know, up in the garage or even outside. Now, signal is not a problem at all. And of course, Orbi is compatible with Starlink, as I'm showing you here, but it's compatible with pretty much any internet service provider that you have, especially if you have faster speeds than mine. A lot of people talk about their fiber connections that can be, you know, 5 or 10 times faster than what I have here. This is going to be able to handle all of those speeds. Yes, the people that have 10 times faster internet than me, this is also for you as well. So of course we have to do some speed tests, so I will show you those now. The comparison, keep in mind with Starlink, it depends on where the satellites are overhead. So as you're doing these speed tests, you can do 10 in a row, and your results are always going to vary, at least by a little bit or sometimes by a lot. because sometimes the satellite is close, sometimes it's far. Now, the first thing I want you to see, this is the device to router speed. So what I want you to focus on is not the internet speed right now, but it's basically how fast this router can send data to my phone that I'm doing this speed test on. Now, 216 megabits per second isn't slow exactly, and especially the upload speed of 188 megabits per second, Starlink isn't capable of anywhere near that. But what you'll notice in the later speed tests where we're actually testing and checking the internet speed, on the Orbi, I get speeds far faster than this 216 megabit per second limit that I'm currently getting out of the Starlink router. So the Orbi has unlocked even faster internet speeds for me than if I was to default use the Starlink Wi-Fi that came with the system. Overall, in my testing using the respective apps from both Starlink and Orbi, I did notice slightly faster speeds on the Orbi. The one thing I really noticed though was that the ping was lower. My ping recently when connected to the Starlink router has been anywhere from about 35 to 60 milliseconds, somewhere in that range. And for the Orbi, I'm consistently noticing that it's closer to the 20 millisecond up to the 35 millisecond range for the ping. And there really haven't been many outliers. It is just locked in. And this is not something I expected. I didn't actually expect my ping to improve at all or really be any different, but it has. The ping is dramatically lower. I don't know if it's because I have the satellite right here and it's making the connection better or something, but whatever's going on, the Orbi has much better ping for me when compared to the Starlink router. And then of course, also important is the looks of the Orbi. It is really low stated. You can get black or you can get white, whatever you want. And it fits in my opinion, with lots of different decor. I do think the Starlink router actually looks pretty nice too, although you don't get any options with that. It's only going to be white. It does have the orbit of both Earth and Mars on the front of it, which is really nice. But the Orbi is a little more low key and probably fits in more scenarios. So the Orbi gets you much faster speeds, much better coverage. That coverage is also much more customizable because you can move the satellites around, you can move the base station around, and you're getting the latest, fastest Wi-Fi technology that's available today that new devices are really going to be able to take advantage of. With more and more products being added to our Wi-Fi every day, you really need a powerful system, and this is one that's looking really good. If you're interested in the Orbi 970 Wi-Fi mesh system, make sure you check out my link below for exclusive discounts, and thank you again to Netgear for sponsoring this video.